we are going to be talking about the magical archetype of Taurus, right? Taurus?
Yes, we're diving into Taurus energy today. So much yumminess here, Vanessa. One of my favorites. How about you?
I mean, I know a lot of Taurians, so I've gotten to embody and to get into the kind of sensuality that Taurus just oozes, right?
It never ceases to amaze me, and it's kind of funny because as I'm doing this work and we're going through month by month, really, and engaging the energy of the moment. It's like how well these archetypes match up with the seasons, like. And of course they do, right? Because that's the whole point of this, this deeper intelligence that we're diving into, right? This cosmic intelligence of how it's all structured. And so with this Taurus energy, we have springtime, we have Beltane. Beltane is the time when, the sensuality and the fertility and like all of this gets celebrated. And, nature and Mother Earth is just exploding with possibility. And all of that factors into all that we know about Taurus energy. So what do we know about Taurus? So let's take a minute and just kind of tease out, what are the commonly understood aspects of the energy of Taurus as an archetype in the zodiac?
Well, we have the bull, right? So when I love thinking about Taurus from this Disney character called Ferdinand the bull. And I don't know, it's kind of, it's from early animation, but they did make a movie recently. And it just epitomizes the Taurian energy, and that he always stops to smell the roses. And he's slow and he takes his time, and he's kind of just like luxuriating in nature. And it's definitely a good different state of being for someone like me, who's mostly in my air all the time, in air energy. So the Taurus energy is an earth sign.
Yes, it's an earth sign. It's fixed. It likes what it likes, right? So Taurus energy is very much about those creature comforts. It's about that sense of safety and security. It's about, it's the first. So in the wheel, it's the first earth sign. So we start with Aries, which is that fire that ignites, and then we come into the first realm of the physical, and it's like we like what we like to have that security, that safety, that sense of I know what's happening, a little bit of predictability, right? Taurus likes that. Like I'm gonna set things up so I know what it's about and I have what I need. Getting my needs met.
Definitely, yes. Getting the needs met, comfort, like you said, creature comfort. So like this can be like food and smells and like all of the senses. So like that's something that's really important. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more as we get into the new paradigm expression of Taurus.
And you know what? Let's just go there. Let's go there. So in this podcast series, so the Cosmic Conduit, so it's all about how can we take what's already here? So these ancient archetypes that have been around forever and bring forward, really emphasize the aspects that are going to propel us into this new paradigm way of operating. So we have a new way of living on planet Earth that's emerging at this time. It's here with us. And there's kind of this tension between the old and the new, right? So the old paradigm is falling away and this new paradigm is emerging. And as it emerges, it's really demanding of us this new way to be human. And so what we're doing in this series is really highlighting, like, what can we take? How can we use these, the archetypal energies, these blueprints that are ancient, that have existed, throughout various eras of human history, and really highlight the aspects that are going to propel us into this new paradigm way of living. And so with each of the archetypes we've highlighted, Vanessa and I have spent time in meditation and magic and worked with like, what is the essence of this archetypal energy that anchors a new paradigm principle for us to work with. And so with Taurus, what do we have, Vanessa?
Embodied. synergy.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
so juicy. It's so juicy. And yeah, we're talking about just the Taurian energy that I just get this feeling of like sensuality.
Yes.
And when we're in our senses, when our senses are awakened and we're nurturing and giving ourselves what we need to nurture and awaken our senses and to please our senses, then it brings us more deeply into our bodies.
Yeah. 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 And, so both you and I are certified guides with the Modern Mystery School, and we teach a lot about the senses. We teach a lot about sensory perception. We teach a lot about how to open up your perception and work with that. And we teach about that because it's incredibly important for us as humans. How would you summarize how that's important? Like what's the real key there, kind of, that maybe people don't realize at a surface level about why the sensory, emphasizing the senses, is such an important piece?
Well, because they're gateways, really, because the senses are gateways to understanding ourselves and our reality.
Mhm.
And with this concept of embodied synergy, like getting ourselves into our body through our senses, we can also like start to be aware of more than just our body. So we're
Mm.
in our body and we are physical beings, but we're also spiritual beings. So when we open up those gateways of our senses, we're we're connecting our physical senses, because in the mystery school we teach that we have 10 senses, not 5. We have 5 physical senses and 5 spiritual senses. So when we're opening up these gateways, we're accessing our spiritual senses. So that's actually bringing more of who we are online.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love it. Thank you. So with this embodied synergy, let's take a minute and like define those terms.
Mm.
So, we throw around the term embodied quite a bit, and generally it's pretty straightforward to understand what it's talking about. And like you said, it's so important here in Taurus because we're understanding things through the physical. So through that element of earth, and our physical bodies are our first kind of earth connections. And there's so much intelligence that's embedded in the flesh, in our bodies, and all of the various aspects of it. And so when we come into our bodies, we can engage with that innate everything. So not just the intelligence, but all of the blueprints. All of these archetypal energies are actually contained within our physical bodies. All of our as within, so without, as above, so below. So all of, what exists in the cosmos, the macrocosmos and the microcosmos, they reflect one another. So everything that's outside of us is reflected, is a reflection of that which is within us, and vice versa. So that embodiment is a huge piece.
Mm.
And what would you say is where people get tripped up in that side of it, where embodiment becomes either a challenge or an obstacle, or how have you understood that?
Yeah, embodiment is actually one of my favorite topics, and I don't get, in the mystery school, it's all embedded in there, but like we talk about things from more of like a spiritual perspective. And I love embodiment work. And there has been over the last, many, many years, a movement towards embodiment and somatic work. And that is all about like being in the body, being aware of what's going on inside the body. And that is important. A couple of things that I'm noticing in this movement is like, what is it that you are embodying? Who or what is in the body? Like, if you're in the body, you're in your body, who is it or what is it that's there?
Mm.
And what are you embodying? So that's a question that I don't see people really answer. And like, I think that it's important here to talk about what we're embodying, is that we are divine beings. We're
Mhm.
spiritual beings living a physical experience, and we're infinite beings. So whatever it is that we need to do in the body to actually have the spirit fully land, like, that's a process.
Right.
And in the mystery school work, that's everything that we're doing through activations and initiations. We're preparing the physical and all of the energetic structures to hold the infinite light that we are.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
that's kind of a key here that's missing. Like we need to talk about both the physical body and all of who we are as spirit.
Well, yeah, and it's through the physical that we're having this experience, right? Because otherwise there's no point. You know, we're here, yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're here having a physical experience. And so we don't need the spiritual experience, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like we've already got that, you know, like it's already part of of our nature because we are spirit at our core. So what we haven't had is the physical experience. And so
Mhm,
it's a little
mhm.
bit, you know, out there in the mainstream that may not be exactly how people see things, but that is the reality, as especially as
Right.
people wake up and engage the spiritual journey and have a spiritual awakening. It's like, oh wow, actually
Yeah.
there's all of these keys that are held, like you said, the gateways of the senses that are the physical body. And so we only experience this life through the physical, you know, like it's through this first and then everything else. I remember a statistic that was astounding to me the first time I heard it, which is that we only perceive something like 1% of our
Mhm,
reality. So
mhm.
there's 99% of what goes on around us and within us, and everything else is flies past us because we're not taking in all of that
Right.
information, we're not taking in and registering it. And so when we become more embodied, we register more of what's really going on for us, which is also, you know, where that flip side challenge is that people have struggled to be embodied because the body does experience everything. And so even if we don't have a conscious awareness of it, you know, the body keeps score, right? That's a title of a famous book out there in the world of somatics. Um, that even if we don't remember it, even if we don't have a conscious understanding of something that happened, the body has a memory of it. And um, so oftentimes people struggle to be embodied because of pain, right? Because of emotional pain, because of physical pain. And so they don't want to be in their bodies because there's things that are stored there that are unpleasant. And so that's one of the pieces that as we come into this deeper archetypal wisdom, this deeper archetypal magic, we're working with how can we be embodied and have that be a powerful place for us and not a place that's scary or painful or something we want to run from, but rather, you know, and Taurus really is a powerful energy. When you think of the bull, you don't think of like, oh, weak and sad, you know, you think of like so much strength. And how much has you know, in human history has the bull, both as an animal and as an archetype, really assisted us in our human experience, you know, throughout history.
Yeah, and as I'm listening to you, and I'm also thinking about, you know, what's needed to be embodied and where people get tripped up is yeah, like you said, like we have certain things that are blocking us in our body. So trauma, for example, that's something that, you know, like is a physical mechanism. Like in your
Right.
nervous system, it's a physical built up energy and a physical like rewiring that needs to happen. So to be really fully embodied, there's a couple of things that need to happen. Like number one, you need to create more capacity in your body, like in your physical body. And so that's sort of like more the embodiment work and the somatic work. The other piece is you need to actually be embodying the full breadth of who you are. So like that's kind of the work that we do in the mystery school tradition, is that accessing the higher levels and higher frequencies of our divinity, and like that's also a process. Both of
Yeah.
those things are a process.
Oh my gosh, you know, we could talk about this forever. And we probably should because it's really, you know, really is important because I think people don't have an understanding. And we are such deep, multi-dimensional beings that there is so much to this process of embodiment. So we're just kind of barely scratching the surface with this conversation right now, but we'll definitely be circling around to it, you know, over and over again. Okay, so that's the embodied piece. So
That's the
then
embodiment part.
what
What's
are we
the
talking about with
synergy
the
piece?
synergy? Yes.
Yeah, what are you feeling about synergy?
Okay, so I love this word. I love this word synergy. And it, you know, it really does bring in a very important key within the new paradigm, you know, philosophy, the frequencies, the energy of the new paradigm, which is that we're working towards the greater whole, that nothing really is like a one-to-one, right? We're not doing like this one thing for the sake of this one outcome. It's like multiple yield. So when we choose to take action, we're taking action towards something that's going to have multiple yield, right? So it's going to do a number of things. And when you dive deep enough to find that, so in Aries, we were talking about that aligned action. So when you dive into where that true alignment is and take action based on that alignment, we can have this kind of synergistic outcome. So synergy is when you take different types of things, so different elements, different aspects, different timing, and you bring them together to create something better than what could exist with those individual elements on their own. So it really is it's really alchemy. It's bringing things together in a particular way to have a higher outcome, to have something even better than you started with. And so when synergy is the emphasis, only good things come about, right? Only positive outcomes are there because the goal or the means by which we take action is based on the principle of synergy, that I want what's going to come together and create a win-win-win on every front. Does that sit with your, does that match your perspective on synergy?
Yes. And actually, it's, if you don't mind, like, I'm getting this whole download, like, that's even more exciting than things that we've talked about, because
bring it.
When we talk about embodied synergy, what is the synergy that we're embodying? We're embodying not just, first of all, like, it's our physicality and our spirituality. And like I said, like, being fully in body and awake and aware and walking in this world with the knowledge of who you are in all the dimensions and all of the different aspects of who you are. So that even means, like, let's get meta here, because we're multidimensional beings, like you said. There's multiple aspects of who we are. There's multiple roles that we play, and there's even multiple versions of us that exist, perhaps in different dimensions or different timelines, like getting pretty meta sci-fi, right? Which is, in actuality, only just pointing to a small fraction of who we are as, like, these infinite powerful beings. So the more and more we get to know ourselves, the more we can access and the more we can embody. And when all of those parts are working in concert rather than, contradicting each other,
Yes.
it's like superhero powers.
Right. Yes. I love this. And it's both, like I was saying before, it's both within and without, right? So it's like, it's the synergy of all of the different aspects within you, creating a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win in your own world, your internal world and your immediate external world. But then also, when you're doing that work for yourself, it's then going to be reflected outside of you and do the win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win on the outside as well, which is so Taurusy, so Taurian, right? Because it's that celebration of life. It's that excitement about all of the pleasures, right? We didn't mention that word yet as a Taurus.
Pleasure we did, but let's go even into it more, because it's important.
It is important
to have pleasure.
Well, what I want to do actually now is,
maybe we should talk about the shadows.
Well, let's make it real. So yeah, let's take it into understanding the shadow aspect, but let's take it into like real world application, because it's all good to like, here's all these philosophies, but like, what does it mean when you get to the nitty gritty and we work, apply this in life? So let's look at a real world situation where embodied synergy is the pathway forward. So we can look at it from a shadow perspective. So one of the shadows of Taurus that the embodied synergy really, really helps to counteract, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're repatterning where those shadows exist. So Taurus can end up being stubborn, or can end up being attached to creature comforts. Taurus can kind of get stuck. And Taurus can also go the other route of being, kind of denying the needs. So like, oh, I don't need that, or it's fine, or like, oh, I don't need to bother with that. There's that side of like, instead of really, sinking into the luxuriating of like, ooh, this is going to bring me pleasure. This is going to bring me joy. This is going to feast for my senses. It's denying those senses. Like, oh, I don't need that. Like it's kind of being austere or, you know, a little bit, denying of the self, denying of the needs. So where do we run into that in life? Do you have an example for us, Vanessa?
I mean, I think that comes up for me a lot, and it's magical how, like, as we're doing this work and we're learning about these things, we're diving deep, these things show up in our lives.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing that I've observed in myself, that like sometimes somebody will ask me, do you want a glass of water? Like, do you want a cup of tea? And like some part of me does, or some part of me doesn't. I'll be like, no, it's okay, it's fine. And like that's a simple one, but like I'm observing myself as I have to actually stop and get into my body
Right.
and then ask, is this what I really want? Because like my mind or my other, you know, some other mechanism I have going on will just be like, okay, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want to put you out or whatever, you know, like it's too much.
So then how does that, you meeting your own needs, help somebody outside of you? Because we would think like, oh no, I'm bothering them, so therefore I need to deny my needs to like help them be okay. But we're saying that actually the opposite is true, that when you meet your own needs, it actually helps people outside of you. So how does that work?
Yeah. You know, as you were talking earlier, and I was thinking of, you know, you're talking about the win, 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 like, and as within, so without, like everything we do, and this is a new paradigm principle, is like everything we do is energy and everything is connected. So, you know, what we do for ourselves is going to ripple out into
Yeah.
our world. So if I'm, you know, for example, if, you know, my partner asks me if I want a cup of tea and I don't think about whether I do or not, and I just say no, you know, maybe I was dehydrated. Maybe I did really need a cup of tea. But if I stop and listen to my body and I say, you know what, actually, like I feel a little bit frazzled, and I would love to have some chamomile tea that's going to help me feel more relaxed and more open and more like present for the rest of my day or the rest of my evening as I wind down. And then that, for me, being in that space of being relaxed and open, like that feeds him and helps him to
Right.
be relaxed and open.
Exactly. You know, it reminds me. So we both have a dear friend who has quite a bit of Taurus energy. And, you know, we got to be around her recently. And, you know, when she's in her delighted self, she absolutely lights up the room, right? And is so fun to be around because she's just delighting in everything, you know, like the beauty of we went and had mocktails at you know, at the little hotel downstairs, you know, restaurant area. And the gentleman who made it for us, you know, he took time and put in, you know, care, put a little flowers and fresh mints and you know, slices of cucumber. I'd never even seen sliced cucumber in a drink like that, you know, and it was just like tonic water with lime and, you know, but just the care and attention that he paid. And it was a feast for the senses, the taste, the sight, you know, the all of it. And the way it lit her up, I mean, it was just like, I mean, of course I enjoyed it too, but with
Yeah.
that Taurus energy, it was like, you know, back to your Ferdinand the Bull, you know, cartoon, just luxuriating in the loveliness of it all. And it just reminds everybody to stop and enjoy, right? To like, to take it to the higher level, to have an experience of enjoying the physical body, to love the pleasure of what it means to be here, being physical. And that on every front is so helpful. That helps our physical health and well-being. It helps our mental health and well-being. It helps us connect more into the spiritual side of us, because that delight, you know, that excitement, you know, it literally lights us up, and that light is our spirit. It brings more spirit into the experience that we're having in the physical, and that feeds us and nourishes us and sets the pattern for how others can do it as well, right? So we help other people tune to that higher frequency.
I'm like this, the energy of it's so juicy to me,
right?
I'm just thinking like, you know, we can live in bliss and enjoy and and pleasure all the time, like
Yeah.
all the time, but that's a choice. And,
It absolutely
like
is.
it's a choice. And also, we talked about it a little bit before, like some of the pitfalls of the spiritual journey is like we will want to be like out there, like to go out there and be pure consciousness. And like that's actually more of like the masculine energy, to be like in the mind, or like in the consciousness, or out, like out, way out, far out,
Right.
father sky, but when we come back down into the body, mother earth, into the feminine, into the senses, like we have as much access to spirit there too. So it
Yeah.
really is like being able to be aware and to integrate all of the parts of us, from like the densest aspect of us all the way out to like the highest frequency of spirit, the pure spirit that we are. That's like what we can attain to. And in Kabbalah, universal Kabbalah, we say the kingdom of spirit is embodied in the flesh.
Yeah. Well, and with that, what we're doing with work like Kabbalah and, the initiatory path within the mystery school tradition, is we're wanting to awaken the depth of that blueprint that we have within us, that which is programmed in, who are we at our core? Who are we as this expression of our divine spirit self, right? And so when we work with this embodied synergy, it's about going in and finding that. And I had an experience myself of this recently, where actually in some of the work, we were doing to collaborate, and there was a piece that was like, for me to work on, and I was having this resistance and I didn't want to do it, or didn't like the time frame or something. And I found myself just like, I don't want you. And it felt very kind of like Taurus, a little bit of a, resistance tantrum. Like, no, I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. I don't want to do it, which is another, kind of shadow aspect of Taurus. And so I was like, okay, I can't really not do it, right? It's not an option to say, I'm not going to do it. So how can I make this a synergistic expression? How can I make this a synergistic experience? And so what I ended up doing, which I didn't even realize it was this embodied synergy, is I went deeper. I went underneath it. I went underneath where the resistance was. And I was like, okay, what's missing? Something's missing here. Something's missing from the experience of like, I don't like it. I don't like it because it doesn't have something that I want. And so I was like, okay, well, how can I find what I want, what I need here? How do I get this need met? By going deeper within myself. So I went further into the embodied experience, and I found like, oh, here's a missing piece. And when I found something that was missing, I was like, oh, I can bring this in. I can add this into the mix. And then all of a sudden it had shifted the entire playing, the playground, the arena. And then it became something I was very excited to do, because I was being true to myself. I went further into the embodiment of this is what is true for me. And this is what really lights me up. This is where I can find that pleasure, that excitement, that inspiration. And then it became synergistic, because I was being true to myself at an even deeper level. And it was so magical. I was like, this is cool. And then from that place, it was able to flow, right? And so then it's like, I didn't have to like work at it. It didn't seem like it was work, which interestingly enough, from a Taurus perspective, the bull or the ox, is a labor animal. It's one that we've used to help us do work in the world. And so when we come from this place of this embodied synergy, the work becomes fun, the work becomes pleasurable. It's not about, shying away from hard work or, getting done what needs to be done, but rather doing it in a way that really is pleasurable, where the experience is delightful. It's fun. It brings, joy to the overall, lighting up the room with that experience of something delightful. So yeah, embodied energy.
Cool. I love that story. So what would you say, that in that process, like, how does that help, so like one of the shadows of Taurus is like to be, I guess, like, yeah, stuck in a comfort zone.
Hmm.
So how would that process help one to move out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing, right? Because part of my resistance was like, this is out of my comfort zone to do this, or it's not fitting into something that that's already in my immediate sandbox, and so it's like, okay, that means I have to sort of expand the sandbox. I have to find a way to play differently that's still going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but
Right,
it's going to
right,
be pleasurable. So it doesn't
right.
become scary and difficult and like all the things that we're reacting against with that Taurus energy. Taurus is never going to lean into that. So rather than, it's like, how can I enhance, bring more into my sandbox so that it has the elements that are needed, and then I can play and have fun and feed that Taurus energy at the same time. So what's very cool is we're going to have a chance to actually engage this in our upcoming Cosmic Conduit live shared
Guided
sacred
ceremony.
space. Yes, our ceremony. So we have a new moon happening like really, really soon. And so we're going to really take in that new moon energy. So it's the Taurus new moon here at the time of Taurus. So we've got double Taurus. And then actually, I think we have Jupiter in Taurus right now. So we've got a ton of Taurus energy. And we're actually going to go to work. We're going to do magic. We're going to do alchemy. So that is a time. Do you want to issue an invitation, Vanessa?
Well, we would love to have you join us, because we're really, as we're talking about these archetypes, it is about applying them and taking that energy into your life so that you can go forward and anchor these pillars of the new paradigm and use them in your life, because energy is shifting. The world needs your light and your magic. And this ancient system has always been here. And we're using this in community in order to anchor and to create a new way of being. So we would love to have you join us in a group space. It's very beautiful, sacred, and very practical.
Yes. So that is another, key feature of the new paradigm, is that it's collaborative and it's communal, and it's about us as individuals doing our individual work for the good of the whole. And so when we come together in community, we really get to emphasize that piece, and we get to learn from one another. We get to bounce, ideas and experiences, and really amplify one another in the magical processes and the alchemy that we're doing. So we'd love to have you join us. We're going to do it, in an online space. So you get to set up your own ceremonial space in your own home. And then Vanessa and I will be leading you through a process. We're actually going to work with a couple of the gods and goddesses connected to the energy of Taurus. You want to say who those are, Vanessa?
I think you should say who they are.
Okay. So we're going to work with the goddess Venus. So she is Venus is the planetary ruler of Taurus. And then alongside,
she wants us to be very sensual and have a lot of pleasure.
Yes, for sure. So Venus is really good at helping support that. And then we like to have both masculine and feminine. So, so the counterpart, a masculine energy that we're going to bring in for that work is the Greek god Dionysus. So he is a very earthy.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
He's party. It's party
pleasurable.
time.
Yes.
It's party time.
And very much about the fertility, very much about what is the potential of what we can bring about through fun, through celebration, through really tapping into the spirit, the spirit that exists within all. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So we'd love to have you join us here. We'll link the information here. You're also just welcome to reach out to us if you'd like to join in for that. And we do this every month. So every month at the time of the new moon, we're going to be working with the archetypal energy of the zodiac that we're in. So next month we'll be working at the Gemini new moon, doing another ceremony, but definitely follow us here for more. We're going to be bringing in the counterpart energies. So we have the energy of Taurus in connection to its counterpart, which is Scorpio. So we're going to see how that alchemy works. And then we'll be moving on into the rest of the zodiac as we go. So please come be part of the fun. Join us in our online community. Join us here in our podcast. We'd love to have you and your contributions and your light and your delight adding in.
Well, we'd love to see you soon. Thanks for joining us.